A reading from the scripture of the All Faith Liberation Church, Aurelia's Morrow, Part 1. This is the story of an elf woman named Aurelia of Rasil'yon, Aurelia the Flower of Rasil'yon, and her adventures through different species. She's actually magically transformed into different people, an orc, a human, briefly a dragon, and other beings. And this is the last part of her elfishness for a long time before she's captured by orcs. This is the beginning. Though the end of the battle, she was called upon to fight with her friends up in the North Country to fight the orcs, because the elf villages were being attacked by the orcs, and they fought back and were very savage in their battle. And then they were on their way back. They were cut off, and here is a grim realization came upon them as they ran helter-skelter, desperately fighting for their lives. They had been let in, allowed to pass those 4 or 5 weeks ago. All this just so they could be trapped here, now. The hapless victims of the elves' rage had been left like bait for a trap. The orcs did not value life so dearly as their adversaries. The chieftains, who made a rough temporary alliance to reap the plunder of the northern elves, had left a few isolated bands of their own to die, outcasts of their old and their young and their sick, left in sacrifice to the elfish advance, just so the elves could come back weakened, hungry, and prematurely satisfied. How could we have been so blind? Out of their element, in foreign hostile terrain, and mostly utterly inexperienced in actual warfare, the young elves and half-elves rallied valiantly to save themselves. But that old man of the Trafalgar elite corps had a point, if appreciated far, far too late. The elves' style of fighting might have worked in the forests with cover and familiar terrain, but here organization was sadly lacking. The orcs, even the youngest and least experienced, knew war as their breath and life. The tundra was a perennial battlefield. War was as great a constant in their lives as the holy moon or the holy forest was to the elves. This is why 'twas not moon or forest nor any natural thing, but war itself that was their most holy deity. In the gentle forests of Aurelia, the elfish goddess of the forest, with its song and its wine and its idyllic sensuality, such battles were unknown. How could an untested force, hardly knowing war, prevail against a cruel and war-scarred army of vastly superior numbers on their own ground, even if the latter had been but most primitive weapons in comparison to their adversaries? Aurelia lost most of her party in seconds, diving behind some thick tufts of long grass, and expertly picking off orcish positions in the foothills above. Tarils she heard, but could not see. It was every elf for herself now, a battle which the elves, after all, more than preferred to fight. The battle raged on till nightfall, and the elves repelled many thrusts of orcish columns, but the main force of the orcs were prepared to simply stand in the shallow, speeding river, their motley furs and buckskins tightened against the chill of the current, and wait. The elves would either eventually starve, freeze, or die of thirst. Either that, or they would have to plunge headlong into the horde to meet their certain doom. Or they would have to surrender. The cold fire in Aurelia's blood burned for hours. She dodged many spears and javelins, tipped with poison, tipped with fire. But eventually even the tufts of her grass, of her cover, and the little shoulder of earth had burnt away, some group of orcish bastards in a hill behind a rock targeting her particularly. She did not want to die. She had just begun to live. The Codex, Aurel's legacy, her uncle's legacy, lay somewhere not so very far away. She knew she might never find it now. That weighted her down now, even more than the fear of death itself. The very purpose she'd chosen, that her whole family line and fate itself seemed to have chosen for her, was going to go forever unrealized. She had to fight this despair, along with the animal fear of death, along with the waning of her strength as she grew tired and hungry and a new snowstorm darkened the horizon. O Rasil'yon, Father God, Father Moon, O Aurelia, Mother Forest, let me survive this. Let me live to see the morrow. Then everything began to fade. She'd been hit. A poison dart in her leg as she'd run from her lost cover to a new position. As she strained in the hail of spears to remove it, she realized with sick dread that it was a sleepy poison. She would be left to die, or worse, to be captured. Chapter 4th, Initiation. Aurelia meandered in and out of consciousness. Mostly it was a black void alike to death. But just as she felt her spirit returning to the mythic Isles of the Blessed, that place from whence all elves had come and to thence are said to return, she would awaken again. She kept finding herself on a slowly advancing dog sled amidst an Orcish band, all wrapped tight in soiled gray buckskin rags against the fierce icy gale, some on dog sleds, some just trudging through the snow. The sky was an almost crimson violet, glowing preternaturally amidst swirls of blacks and grays, the twilight of the southerly tundra giving way to an eternal night, the trudging, slow, somber forms shadows etched against the darkness. She was weak and could not move, intended to nod off again, just to feel herself in the same sled amongst the same orcs some miles later. She came to realize she'd been tied down, with a smelly, thick blanket enveloping her like a mummy. Wriggling a little, then a lot, she felt her skin against the rough texture of the blanket and realized she was entirely naked underneath. She strained her head to look around and caught a few others of her kind similarly tied down on similar dog sleds, all going to the gods knew where. An Orcish woman, Aurelia could not tell how she knew it was a woman, since it was the first Orcish face she'd ever seen up close, was trudging in the snow beside her. As if she could read her need, she took out what seemed a small wineskin and splashed some water on Aurelia's mouth. Aurelia pursed her lips, and the orc splashed some more water into her mouth, then wiped off the excess with a rag of her sleeve lest it freeze on her lips. Aurelia peered into the cowl the orc woman wore, to see a face so ugly, so misshapen as to defy any natural symmetry. The face was vaguely hominin, but the mouth was very wide and a little sideways, sporting two yellowed fangs of different lengths jutting from a protruding lower jaw. The skin was a mottled greenish-gray, the nose almost non-existent, just two holes in the skin, and the eyes were coal-black, dumb, and lifeless. The face twisted into something like a sneer, and the being held up the wineskin again. Aurelia gratefully opened her mouth, but instead of water, this creature spat a gob of flick phlegm on her lips and tongue. As Aurelia coughed and spewed out the slimy spittle, the creature made a gurgling, choking sound, which Aurelia realized was Orcish laughter.